Hey guys, welcome to episode 17 of Unethical Podcast.
But you're nards, though.
Our guest host for this episode is Jenna McEwen-Kopic, and today we're going to be discussing the substance-induced psychosis of David Crespi. Welcome to Unethical Podcast. I apologize for this one in advance, you guys. I know we're trying to steer away from kids. Jean-Benet was a bit of an exception because she's part of, the cult classic mysteries like Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac, but this one has to do with kids.
Great.
But I'm going to try to steer the conversation towards the important topic of the episode, which is substance-induced psychosis.
Oh, I know all about that.
And it's not the fun one.
Oh, never mind.
It's not the fun one. It's not the bath salts eating faces one. I'm sorry.
No salvia.
Not today.
All right. Well,
no.
that stuff's wild.
I guess it's okay. If there's no face eating, I guess we'll be okay.
We've had cannibalism. It's okay. To start with, I want to talk a little bit about depression. When you think of depression, what, either from your experience, if you personally have experienced it, or what you think other people experience, what do you think depression is?
Yes.
Wants to go first.
That was like the only answer that was not correct.
Inability to get out of bed. The pits.
Yeah, it's a ongoing feeling of deep sadness and nothingness, really.
Impending doom.
Yep. Sometimes even dread.
I learned the other day that if you get a blood transfusion of the wrong blood, the only symptom that you will experience is a feeling of impending doom.
Yep.
Isn't that freaky?
That is freaky.
We have to watch it when we give people blood transfusions on the ward. That's one of the things we have to look out for. If all of a sudden someone is like, "Oh God, I'm gonna die," we know to stop the blood straight away.
Isn't that terrifying?
Yeah, so scary.
Can you actually die from that, or is that legit the only thing that happens?
Yeah, because it's your body having a anaphylactic reaction.
Yeah, there's even like blood types that are like they can't reproduce. I mean, they can, but like it's catastrophic usually. Like just the DNA is mixing. I don't know what they are, but I've heard, like a lot of people should go get their blood tests before they should get their blood type before they reproduce so that you don't end up with that catastrophic event.
Okay, sorry to go totally off track there. I read that and I was like, that's the freakiest thing I've ever heard.
I love it.
Okay. So yeah, any more impressions on depression?
It sucks.
I've been told that I experience it, but I've never been like, okay, I want to go get medication for that, because I feel like there's levels of it, and if you can talk through it and understand where your sadness is coming from, then maybe you can help it at the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the most that I've done for my depression, and that definitely helps.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, medication is not right for everyone. I do take medication for it, and it's awesome. But either way is good. Whatever you're doing, you're doing the right thing.
I'm not against medication. I've always been told that I can use the breathe to 10 and count to 10 and use your surroundings, and that definitely helps. But I can totally see where there's definitely been moments where I've not been able to ground myself, and I've thought, hey, maybe it's time to actually go and see somebody about this. So I'm not against it. I don't think I've ever been pushed to that though.
Okay, so in order to be diagnosed with depression, according to the DSM-5, you have to experience one of two main criteria. So one is the presence of negative emotions, whether that's sadness or self-hatred or just like a feeling of being like angry with other people. And the second one is called anhedonia, which is a loss of interest in things that you once found enjoyable. So after one of those two criteria are met, the secondary symptoms are considered. And the secondary symptoms are as follows. Sleep-related symptoms, including difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, and sleeping more than is necessary. Changes in weight or appetite. Difficulty concentrating. Fatigue. Changes in perception, including feeling like you're thinking very slowly or that you're thinking too fast to keep up. General low feelings. A feeling of unfounded guilt or worthlessness. And suicidal thoughts or ideation. That is according to the DSM-5. And I bring this up because the perpetrator of today's crimes blames his antidepressant medication for his actions, as does his wife. But the most important thing to go in with, I think, is the knowledge that this man, David Crespi, was much, much more than depressed.
What's the difference between thoughts and ideation? Isn't that the same thing?
Suicidal thoughts means like you think about it, you consider it, you think about, like, for example, what you're like what you could avoid by doing it. Suicidal ideation is the feeling of like, if I commit suicide, people will love me because I'm gone and things will be better without me. It's like thinking of suicide as a positive instead of as a way out. So the story begins, I guess, 20 years before it begins. David Crespi suffered from depression for much of his life and in fact had 2 previous suicide attempts. I wrote precious suicide attempts.
Yeah.
Oh,
Glitchy fingers, eh? Freudian slip of the fingers.
Precious. Okay. So experiences where he strongly considered it. And one of those was he locked himself in the garage with the car running. And another one was he hung from the side of a bridge and considered letting go. But both of those times he stopped on his own free will. So his depression was especially severe when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And he had been seeing a therapist on and off for years. But what David wasn't telling his therapist was that his thoughts were often drawn towards hurting himself, but also towards hurting others. He contemplated using his car to run down strangers on the street and murdering his family with shocking regularity. And he kept all of those thoughts to himself for far too long. So on January 20th, 2006, David was at home with his wife and his twin 5-year-old daughters. David was on leave from work because of his depression, and the girls were both home with colds. So he spoke to his mom on the phone around 11:30 a.m. and she had just called to check in on him. How you doing? I know you're depressed. This was a regular thing in his life. And then around 12:15 a.m., his wife, Kim, left so that she could get a haircut. 22 minutes later, David called 911. After Kim had left, the girls had asked their father to play hide and seek with them. Once he found his first daughter, Samantha, he took her to the kitchen and he stabbed her 18 times. His other daughter heard the commotion and came to investigate. And when she saw what was happening, she ran upstairs to hide. And he found her hiding in the closet in the master bathroom, where he stabbed her 14 times. Both girls were dead before he had made the phone call. And he said that he had considered committing suicide at this point, but instead he washed his hands, changed his clothes, and dialed 911. And so if you consider all the time that it took to wash up, to change, it was basically immediately after Kim left. So he had decided to do this already. There was no thoughts here.
Mm-hmm.
So the police found him waiting on the porch outside his home.
I was just gonna say it's interesting how his depression waited till his wife left to do this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's a little interesting, and just to knock it off somewhere at the beginning here. Yeah. Ugh. So
the police officers that were involved in this case were horrified by what they witnessed that day, and it stays with them. One of the police officers who arrived on the scene was feverishly trying to save one of the girls because he was certain he could feel a pulse. But he was told later that she was long gone before he got there, and what he could feel was his own heart pounding.
Yeah, don't use your thumb to check pulses. Heartbeats in your thumb, but not these two fingers.
Yeah, and if your heart's pounding super hard doing that because you're freaked out and stuff, you're gonna trick your mind plays tricks on you in a lot of ways, right? Especially if you just really want that little girl to be alive. You're gonna, my heartbeat's pounding. I felt it in my fingers for sure. There's a pulse. Get her an ambulance.
For sure. And he was a 26-year veteran. And so he'd felt lots of pulses. This case in particular was just a brand new experience for him. Mm-hmm. And many of the police officers and crime scene investigators broke down in tears during the trial. So once David was taken into custody, he told the police that he had been suffering from depression and that during his depressive episodes, he would have thoughts of murdering his family because of the financial strain of raising children. So he said in this interview that he had started carrying a butcher knife with him when he was with his daughters, when they were only toddlers. He was just always ready to kill them should the mood strike.
Is this okay? So he said that after he was arrested and stuff like that?
Yeah, he said this in the interrogation.
Oh my God.
And despite the fact that he was walking around with a butcher knife in his pants, his wife had absolutely no idea about any of this. So I think it's probably safe to say he wasn't getting any. I feel like you would notice.
Yeah, you would assume so.
Was he actually, or is this a way to like talk about, hey, I was really all the time going to do this? Like, I'm sorry, I'm a little suspicious of that. Like, it's okay, maybe you did, but I feel like you probably didn't. That's just my feeling.
I feel like on Unethical, we just kind of, if the character is the perpetrator, we just don't trust anything he says. That is just kind of the unethical way.
I feel like that's like the way we should, like, I don't know, if you're in a lot of trouble, you're going to try and say whatever you can to get out of trouble. It's just human nature, right? It's not so to back your story up of like, I was really depressed all the time. I carried around a knife. I was going to do it all the time. Maybe I just
doesn't add up.
Weird that you'd carry around a knife.
It really doesn't.
Weird.
He handed himself over to the police. He knew that he was going to be going to prison. There's no reason to lie about anything at this point. He also told the investigators in the interrogation that the reason that he had stabbed his daughters so many times was so that it would be over sooner for them. And that he stabbed them because his actual quote was that he didn't want to take care of them anymore.
Just leave then.
Yes, agreed. Just fucking leave.
Put your shit away and leave, walk out the door, man. Like, hide and go seek and just hide. They want to play hide and go seek, hide. Make them can't find you. Like,
wait for them to hide and then just hide for a pack of smokes and never return.
What a piece of shit.
Yes. So in July of 2006, David pled guilty to the first-degree murder charges for both of the daughters, and he accepted 2 life sentences in prison in order to avoid the death penalty at trial. And it's ironic because he claimed he had all those thoughts of killing himself, and the death penalty shouldn't scare him.
Safe to say he's not a philosophical man.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. Just hop on the morphine train into the white light. The government's paying for it. You're not leaving a mess. Just fucking go, dude.
Yeah.
Trying to make it quick for them and stab him 14 times. That's not quick for the. Anyways, this guy.
No, that's not quick at all. It's not like, even though they're tiny, it's still not. It's not easy to stab a person.
Yeah, it's definitely crime of passion.
Especially your kids, especially your kids. Like, oh my God, I can't.
But I think that he said exactly what it is. He didn't want to take care of him anymore.
The reason that he actually accepted this plea deal, as it turns out, was not because he didn't want the death penalty. The reason that he accepted it was because his wife urged him to. In what I consider to be the most insane thing I have ever heard in my life, she didn't want to lose her husband. Kim firmly believes that David is innocent.
What?
She believes that he murdered the girls because he had a psychotic reaction to medications he was given for depression.
Well, how long was he on this medication for? Didn't he say he carried around a knife all the time? Like, it's got to be one or the other. Yeah.
So in the past, David had been living on a cocktail of Paxil for depression. That's paroxetine. Trazodone for anxiety, and Ambien as well as Lunesta for insomnia. But he had gained more than 50 pounds recently on the Paxil, and his doctor, 7 days before the incident, had switched him over to Prozac, and that's fluoxetine.
I was gonna sing one of those Prozac songs, but it's inappropriate.
That's the number one reason I don't take medication for my depression.
A little sexual frustration.
Oh, no, I had metabolic symptoms. So I had metabolic side effects and I gained 30 pounds from Prozac. And when you gain weight, like that shit just makes everything harder. You know what I mean? Like my body, body image and self-esteem, everything just went down the fucking garbage. And I'm like, man, I was just feeling better.
Yeah.
And this was like a full year ago.
We talked about that in Vince Lee too. Remember, he said his medication made him
Mhm.
gain weight, and that was like the main thing he complained
Mhm.
about.
Yeah.
So either you can be skinny or you can be sane. Pick your fucking poison.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 7 days is a short period of time for titration, right? He could have easily switched to something else, but then this fucking thing happened.
Well, that type of medication, you're supposed to, it's not, you can't stop that medication. Like, it's not like just taking paracetamol or anything. You have to like if you're on 100 milligrams a day, you have to go down to 75 and then 50, and then you have to work your way off
Like every other day.
Yeah, and
Yep.
then build it back up. So if he just stopped one medication and started taking another, then I mean, there's a likelihood that he would have had a reaction. But the fact that he's been doing all this stuff to build up to actually doing it, I don't think he can say that the medication, he reacted to the medication. Not with all this stuff that he was doing in the previously. Like if he didn't have all this stuff going on before and it was just a spur of the moment thing, then maybe I could believe that there was something happened with the medication. But the fact that he's carrying around a fucking butcher's knife while he takes his daughters to the park is like, sorry, mate. No.
And the minute his wife leaves the house is when shit
What's the
goes.
point of therapy if you're not even going to talk about the stuff you need to talk
For
about in
sure.
therapy?
And that's a hard part about, I think that's probably the hardest part about therapy, is actually being honest with everyone and yourself, right? So who knows, maybe eventually he would have gotten to that point of saying like, I wanted it, but I mean.
Yeah. And because I haven't found a medication that works for me, the only thing right now that I'm doing is talk therapy. That's the only thing I'm doing right now. So like without that, I would, I probably wouldn't even be able to settle my anxiety enough to come hang out with you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And with an improper diagnosis, who knows what you're doing to their brain chemistry by putting them on something that isn't intended to treat what they actually have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Ugh, it's so hard. It's so hard to think about things from the other side at this point, because it just
Yeah.
seems like all this fucking guy's fault, and we'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Kim believed that it was his switch to Prozac that triggered the episode of Psychosis, in addition to the addition of Lunesta for sleep insomnia. Only 2 years before this incident, in 2004, Dr. David Healy released a paper warning that evidence of SSRIs being linked to fits of homicidal ideation were being ignored. So, you know how like all those antidepressant commercials are like, feeling sad? Take this pill. Warning, may make you way fucking sadder. Well, apparently they should also say, warning, may make you want to kill everyone you hate and actually kill everyone you love.
I bet you they do. In some of those commercials, they go like, this makes you great. And then the side effects included. And then it's like the whole page. You have to like, if you pause it, you could probably take 20 minutes to read them all, but I bet you it has it in there. I bet you they would have.
Yeah.
But side effects are like worst case scenarios. I think, probably rarely happen. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Covering their butt.
Yeah. Well, you get all the normal ones, like, headache, stomach ache, whatever, but then they have to, regardless of how small the possibility of it happening, they must put it on there. Like, even if it's like
Anal bleeding.
Yeah. Even if it's like may cause anal leakage.
Exactly. If only
Goddamn
that was all he had, was some anal leakage.
Yeah, fuck.
Hey, you never thought you'd wish for anal leakage, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Why couldn't he just have anal leakage?
But then he would complain about not being able to afford the toilet paper.
Oh my
He's
god.
too busy spending all these.
Now I have to stab the fucking toilet paper makers.
I don't know, man. Maybe his toilet paper budget had gone way up because of the anal leakage in combination with his daughters being potty trained. Maybe it was just costing him too much fucking money. And he's like, well, my anus is not going to stop leaking. I got to get rid of 2 anuses. It ain't going to be mine. Anywho, I digress. So in court, David's lawyers argued that not only were the drugs that he was on inefficient to actually treat what was wrong with him, but they were harmful to his brain chemistry. Once he was evaluated by a forensic psychiatrist, David was diagnosed with psychotic depression and bipolar disorder. Tally, you talked about, I think it was maybe last week's episode, you were talking about how like there's 2 different kinds of bipolar disorder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so there's like the low lows, but then the extreme highs.
Yep. And that would be bipolar 1 for extreme highs and extreme lows. And then I'm diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is like my highs are just normal. You know, it's how I would normally function. But my lows are super low. Like can't get out of bed. Don't have any interest in doing shit.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk to me. You know, I want all the lights off.
Yeah. Yeah. I read an interesting case study when I was in university about a man who had bipolar 2. And this man's highs were so high that there was an incident that finally ended up having him
Institutionalized?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Institutionalized, because during one of his highs, he bought an office space for his business with no regard to the financial implications. He invited his daughter and her husband over to see it, and he was really excited about it. And he was so fucking like high that he ended up hitting on his daughter. He was making passes at her the entire time he was showing her this office space.
Wow.
And so this guy's got the bipolar disorder where he's experiencing these insane emotional highs,
disillusioned.
but his lows then changed into psychotic depression.
Yeah.
Okay, what is psychotic depression? I don't understand that. You said that twice now.
I'll say it more times.
I need just a clarification on that, because it sounds, what, you just can't even get out of bed? That's the psychotic part? Like it's so bad, it's
No.
so...
Okay, so basically
no, you're wrong.
No.
Shut up. Just shut up.
So essentially a psychotic presentation of any sort of mental illness means that it can trigger psychosis. And so schizophrenia itself is not psychotic. Vince Lee had psychotic schizophrenia.
Okay, understood. Carry on.
I shot. So it also came out in court that David's statements about being worried about money were entirely unfounded. Okay. Yes, he and his wife had 5 children. One of those children was a grown adult, in general, not a huge financial strain. He was in remission from the testicular cancer and had no reason to believe that he would soon be expiring. And even if he hadn't, even if he still was sick and potentially was facing down dying in the very near future, David was a banker. In fact, he was senior vice president of the Wachovia Bank in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
He earned 6 figures a year. He was in no danger of losing his job. And he was coming into the largest bonus he had ever received in his career.
But your nards, though, I think you're discounting how much your nards are important to a man.
But your nards, man.
Nards are an important piece of a man, okay? And I don't care how much money you have in the world. If you're going to lose your nards as a man, you're probably not impressed about it. I don't care what kind of bonus you have. It probably puts you in depression. If I had any type of threat to my nards right now, I've said nards way too many times. Testicles. I feel like that would affect my depression level for sure. So it's in remission, but man, that was the first place.
But what does your nards have to do with you being able to take care of your kids?
No, I know. I'm just saying it's probably adding to his depression. You're saying it's not, it's in remission, but I mean, at the same time, it's the first place the cancer attacked your dick, man. That's some important pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to clarify, I just meant that it didn't contribute to him thinking he had any reason to be worried financially.
My fault. Yes.
As far as depression, like, yeah, for sure, that'd bum you out. It was like anything would bum you out. Any part of you. I mean, I guess except your leg, because we could eat that.
Yummy.
Okay. So Kim pushed hard for David's case to be retried so that a jury could determine whether his prescription drugs were the trigger behind what he did. So she first announced publicly that she wanted him out of prison in 2012, which again is fucking insane to me. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit how much I love someone. You kill my kids, you're dead to me. Fuck off.
Yeah, and especially like in such a violent and crazy manner, like it's in your house. It's all blood's all over everything. Like, yeah, it's traumatic. It's not like he smothered them in the middle of the night and like he stabbed them 14 times. Like that's got to be, I don't know, man. She must wholeheartedly believe.
Waited.
Sorry.
Until I left.
Yeah.
You waited till I left.
Yeah, for sure.
No, you're getting it. You're getting it.
Yeah, totally. This kind of brings me back to the whole Chris Watts case. You remember?
Oh
Yeah.
Fuck
That
guy.
fucking guy.
Yeah.
No.
I'd like to stick him in a fucking oil drum.
Yeah,
Oh.
right? Like everybody's so like on board to hate this fucking guy, but fucking David did the exact same shit here. And like there's like a whole fucking website dedicated to like it's not his fault. It's not his fault.
Chris Watts tried to hide it. This guy here called 911 right away. So Chris Watts is a bigger piece of trash than this guy. I forget his name already, but
David Crespi.
yeah, Chris Watts tried to get away with it. You know, this guy here was like, I'm fucked.
And he's getting fan mail and
Yeah,
shit.
fuck that guy.
Like, there's women out there that want to bang him.
This guy thinks that he can go to jail and then it get passed away. Like, not his fault. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's shady. Like, more shady.
Yeah.
Like, at least Chris Watts knew he had to like hide it afterwards. Like what is this guy and his wife doing? Like, you think that it's just, it's just, I don't know. I'm just kind of
No,
Yeah.
it's
No, I see what you're saying for sure.
it's a good point. And like, I don't think that she's complicit or anything like that. But I mean, if with her to be so supportive, it's a little suspicious. Like it's not.
Oh, it drives me insane.
Yeah.
Like, how?
I mean, how is she not being questioned? You
Yeah.
know,
You left.
Yeah, it's weird.
You seem to have left at the perfect time.
Why would you leave when you know he's in it so bad? He's off work for a week. Why would you leave to go get a haircut?
Yeah.
and not take your daughters with you.
Or like call your parents to come help him out. 5-year-olds
The
are a lot of
end.
work. 2 5-year-olds are even more work. I don't care if they have a cold.
I can't tell you how many times I danced around a salon while my mom was getting her hair done, you know, just because my dad was around. He wasn't an absent father, but he worked, you know, so
Yeah.
you can't just leave a kid alone. Why, you know, so why would you leave it with an unguided adult?
Yeah, and maybe, and honestly, I shouldn't. She's a victim too. Like her kids fucking died, and I'm not trying to blame her for what he did. But I mean, it doesn't. If they would have said, if she would have been like all for him to get out, and then the cops would have been, hey, maybe we should look into it, I would have supported that decision. But maybe they know more stuff than I do, and hindsight's 50-50. We all fucking. Maybe she was like, he's been good today, and then she went. I don't know, but it just seems a lot of the.
Oh, the guilt.
Yeah, that's so hard. It's so hard to, yeah.
But then, like, I don't know. I feel like the guilt would be eating her up so bad that she wouldn't have the fight in her for her husband.
Yeah, no,
See,
for sure.
The other thing too is that they had 3 other children, and one of them had like reached adulthood unscathed. So I mean, he has been like a non-murdery father in the past. All of her other kids lived past the age of 5. So I mean, there's a reasonable expectation there that all of the kids will live past the age of 5.
For sure.
But and so she's sort of
Celeste.
put her pin in the medication.
Yeah.
You guys are so mature. Grow up.
Did the other kids, the 3 older ones, do they support him being? Is this a thing that's coming up later? Like, do they think that, or is it just the wife?
It's just the wife, really.
And then the other 3 kind of fuck my dad, I guess. He's a dickhead. Which is, I feel like that's the normal reaction to that. The wife, it's weird to think that she's so devoted to this guy that she would take that in stride.
I don't understand. How could you possibly want to sleep next to the man who killed your kids again? How could you possibly want that?
Yeah, even
I
if
mean,
you did love him, you're
maybe
right.
she's a genius. Maybe she wants him out of prison so that she can kill him.
Oh,
bet.
this is a wicked movie.
I would do
You
that.
know?
I could totally see myself doing that. Get him out of prison. Get him out. I'll fight for you. And then the day he's released, I'm fucking turning him into chum and feeding him to the sharks, buddy.
Mine.
Oh, you cut off
Yeah.
you cut off whatever's left of his cancer-ridden testicles, you know, and just because he was important. Those were important to him, you know.
It's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna cut off one ball for each kid of mine you killed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then fry him up and feed him to you
Yeah.
like I'm German and you asked for this.
I'm gonna feed them to you while you're hanging upside down.
Ugh.
Yeah. You know what? I like that theory. We're gonna go with that.
Yeah,
We're gonna go
that's
with
that's
what
the
Kim wants.
it's the most fun. It's the least depressing, so I'm down with it too.
Good for you, Kim.
It's the most fun. At least depressing.
Okay, so Kim went ahead and she enlisted the help of Canadian murderer David Carmichael to strengthen her argument. So in 2004, which was the same year that report about SSRIs causing homicidal behavior, by the way, David, the killer dad beta version, killed his 11-year-old son while experiencing drug-induced psychosis from antidepressants. So they were in a hotel room in London when he began experiencing delusions that allegedly led him to poison and strangle his son, Ian. Now, possibly because this was Canadian, he was deemed not criminally responsible for his crimes, and he was a free man in 2009. So prior to this, both men were described as loving fathers with no history of violent behavior before the events occurred, but then they suddenly snapped one day shortly after being introduced to a new medication.
Hard for me to even wrap my mind around any of this, like how a pill could make you go. It's hard for me to just, I have kids, I love my kids to death, and I can't even imagine a pill or something mind altering enough to make me want to even do anything remotely harmful to them, never mind 14 stab wounds on both of them or whatever. It's hard for me to imagine it, and that's the thing. I'm not a doctor and I don't understand pharmaceuticals, or maybe like fun pharmaceuticals I understand a bit, but I mean, I don't understand like ones that are supposed to help you, you know. I don't. So it's just hard to wrap my brain around that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, like I'm getting a headache from their fucking excuses.
Yeah. So, in 2018, in fact, their numbers grew. On May 20th, 2018, Roger Self was having lunch with his family when he suddenly stood up, left the restaurant, and drove his vehicle into the crowded building in an attempt to kill several members of his family that were dining inside. And he also had a long history of depression and anxiety and had recently started a new antidepressant medication because he was having difficulty coping with a blossoming internet porn addiction and midlife adultery. And in fact, he was actually only sentenced last month in April of 2021 to more than 50 years in prison, which again, this is an American case. So it seems like only the Canadian guy is getting off scot-free here. Like,
Yeah,
We like our incarceration rates.
if I'm doing cocaine, let's say, or some crazy chemical drug, I don't fucking know chemical drugs, but if I'm doing something like that and I go like murder someone because if I get into a psychosis, they're gonna get me, they're gonna ask me who my fucking drug dealer is, and then they're gonna try and go get them. But when it's a pharmaceutical thing and they put a warning label that this might cause that, they just go, no one's criminally responsible, do better. I don't understand how did the pharmaceutical companies get any type of in shit for any of this? Like,
No, they got money.
part of Kim's campaign was for pharmaceutical companies to be required to put much larger, clearer warnings about worst case scenario side effects.
So make that 1-page list 2 pages.
two
Thank you.
pages with double the size font. Woohoo!
Yeah,
I guess. Something like that. They just want to turn pill bottles into cigarette packs. I guess. It's just like pictures of fucking murdered children on the fucking label there.
No.
We finally got one.
No.
We broke
How come
it
you
up.
guys never get that? How come I'm the only one who ever gets no's? How come it's only me?
Well, Celeste, I have a secret for you.
I don't want to know. I have a glass jaw for criticism.
Oh, you're the one talking. That's why.
So yeah, it's a little bit short here, but that was actually the last update on this case that I could find. Kim hasn't posted on the family blog since 2016, when David released a letter from prison stating that he's continuing to live with his actions. It's the medication's fault. I miss my daughters. My cell is covered in pictures of them, and all my cellmates come over to jerk off, and I don't know why. He didn't actually say that. I'm just making assumptions here.
Oh man.
And you ask why you never knows.
I don't think covering the pill bottles in any more warnings is going to make it any different. I think medication like this, people need to be monitored. You cannot just give someone an antidepressant and say, here you go, all fixed, take this, you'll be great. You need to be monitored on medication like this. Like, I'm not saying like every day or whatever, but you need to at least be taking that type of medication in conjunction with also doing, like Tally was saying, talk therapy, you know, going to see a psychologist, seeing a psychiatrist, all of those things. And because it's the type of medication that needs to be changed at times. And it's not like you just, you know, you need insulin for diabetes, so you take insulin. You know, there are actually like hundreds of different types of insulin you can take, because a body needs a different type of insulin. And it's exactly the same with medications that affect the brain. You need to be monitored, and you need to have changes every now and then. I hate the way these medications are handled. I hate it. They're just handed out, and, you know, people are given this stuff and just told to go on their merry way and not given any follow-up or any feedback or any help. And
and the importance of taking it every day.
Yeah.
Like you said, like if you're going to stop, if you decide that this medication isn't working for you, you need to consult your doctor and then make that plan.
Yes.
Because it's not like you can just stop taking it, because then that's when the psychotic breaks happen.
Absolutely.
You guys, it's like, I mean, you get physically ill.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like physical illness.
Yeah.
Along with a lot of like, you know, just like mental fog. A lot, you know, that was a lot of like what I was experiencing. Like I was like, what fucking day is it? Like, I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't even know you.
I imagine prescribing someone this stuff is like very trial and error at first, or maybe not trial and error,
Yeah.
maybe that's not the word, but
Yes,
yes,
that is exactly what
it
it is.
absolutely is.
It's a lot of
and
questioning.
combined with the way we live as in a society where we live, like you got to have a job, you got to be able to pay your stuff, and it's really hard to just like trial and error, go back to the doctor all the time, just life wise, right? So there's got to be a lot of changes in that regard when it comes to mental illness, in my opinion, with like being more flexible with these people that do have mental illnesses, so they can go and feel comfortable doing it, going to a doctor and getting your prescription changed, because sometimes people feel like this is good enough. I'm sure maybe I'm like a little bit more agitated, but I'm less depressed than I was before, so that's fine. I can live with it, right?
Sure.
And that's not that's probably not the best way to go about it. And it's hard because we need to make money, man. And who wants a guy that's going to be gone 3 days a month because they got to go try and change their new pills and shit? It's hard to be a person who has a job, an employee who's like that, and it's hard to be a person to go actually just talk to the doctor. Right? It's hard to have all of that.
Yeah, well, it's also even harder when you're like David, and you know, you fucking lie through your teeth.
That's the other thing.
From day one about what's even wrong with you in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes, the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies are certainly to blame somewhat, but I think the vast majority of the problems are the patients. They lie. They don't follow doctors' orders. They lie about possible interactions between drugs they're already taking, or saying they don't smoke because they're embarrassed that they smoke. But guess what? Your new antidepressant is going to give you a fucking stroke if you smoke with it. And they didn't tell the doctor that. Like, and it's just the patients just not taking it seriously and trying to skirt their way around into an easy answer that you just, you're taking risks that you don't need to be taking. And with him, it's different, right? Because it's like, yes, if you tell your therapist that you're fantasizing about murdering your family, yes, there's going to be consequences for that.
Yeah.
If they think you're actually a risk, they're required to report you.
Mm-hmm.
But
then so is killing your kids.
exactly. And so that's the problem, right? At that point, fine, you can't own up to what you're experiencing to your therapist. Why are you going? If you weren't going in the first place, you wouldn't be on any medication, and maybe this never would have happened. And maybe if you weren't on any medication, you would have hurt yourself instead of them. But good, at least you're dead and not them, fucker.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and stigma, the social stigma, like I was saying the last time we talked about mental illness, it's so hard to even want to be honest with your doctor. Like I feel bad in a way for this guy, not that he killed his kids, don't get me wrong, but just to be able to get yourself to a therapist and be able to tell them everything in an honest way is really hard. Just being honest with my partner could be hard. Like me and my wife have been together for a long time, so it's not, but I mean, I remember at first, unless you build a rapport with someone, you're gonna hide stuff, and you're gonna, it's just unfortunate that 2 little kids had to die because of that stupidity, right? Like, fuck.
It's awful.
Yeah. I'm actually like a fortunate American because I actually have pretty decent healthcare through my employer. So, going to the doctor isn't hard for me. But I mean, could you imagine your medical bills if it was just out of pocket, just from trying to get the right level of medication?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, we're super lucky here in Australia. Like, most of that stuff is subsidized by our Medicare, and we also, you can go to your GP and get set up with a mental health plan, and you get free sessions with a psychologist before you have to actually start paying. And then if you do have private health insurance on top of that, you can get psychologist fees covered, pretty much all of it. So we're super lucky here. We do have, I mean, everything can be improved, and we definitely, I think everywhere needs to have a heavier focus on people's mental health. But in Australia, we're very, very lucky that we have the system that we do, because it does make it a little bit easier to reach out and actually get help.
And insurance like flips the switch on it too. Like what's happening is when you're going to the doctor, you are initially interviewing someone that you're going to hire to care, because you're paying them to provide the care. Yeah. So why, I think a lot of people are like, okay, I saw one doctor, so this is the person I'm just going to keep going to, because it's like creatures of habit. But shop for your doctors. Yes. You go ahead and shop for them, because you need to make sure that you're comfortable with who you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're not, don't be afraid to be like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to come back because I don't feel comfortable with you.
The way that we do it up here, which comes back to having problems with being honest in the first place, is you have access to free group therapy. That is always available to you regardless of your situation. But if you want free personal therapy or covered personal therapy, you have to first go to a doctor and prove that it is medically necessary for you to get it. And so you have to be honest first with the doctor that you see in order to be able to then go to see a psychologist. And I took advantage once of the free group therapy. And fucking Christ, one of the girls in the group therapy, she had an eating disorder. She was in recovery from an eating disorder, a very severe one. And our therapist sat there the entire fucking session drinking from a coffee mug that said, "I'd rather be skinny." And I fucking ripped into her when the session was over, man. I can't fucking tell you how pissed I was.
The counselor?
Yeah, the therapist.
Had this coffee cup?
I was furious.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about triggering. I know, like, why? Better to like, why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just so fucking irresponsible. And exactly, Tally, what you're saying, shop for your, I could have just sat there and said nothing and been like, well, it's free. Who am I to complain? Who am I to ask for someone else's time? No, no.
Well, you guys are fortunate that you can shop. Honestly, I live in a part of the world where I have one doctor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's one guy, and that's what you get. That's who you get, and that's you better.
And it's America too, so like I'm one of the few.
Yeah, for sure.
That can do that
for sure. And we have 3,000 people.
That's why it's rare for an American to say that, you know. Like, I can shop for doctors because my employer said so.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's not up to me. I don't make the rules.
Poor old Richard's
Yeah.
living out there with Dr. Quinn, medicine woman.
I fucking wish I got Dr.
She does everything from ingrown
We're doing
toenails to
this.
delivering babies.
Yep.
She does it all, guys. She's amazing.
If you have a baby, where I'm from, if you have a baby, you have to drive an hour to the next hospital over where they deliver babies. You can't even get a baby delivered.
Wow.
No.
So like really keep them knees together when you're
Oh,
watering.
for
Is that
sure.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh man.
No.
The
Do not breathe.
what are they
How
called?
many-
The Brax-Hickston.
Braxton,
the-
Braxton Hicks.
Braxton Hicks.
Yes, man, that was fucking God. You imagine you drive an hour, and they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just false labor, and you're like, I think the fuck not. You'd reach up like your own fucking vagina and break your
Yeah.
water and be like, fucking
Just
sign me
sitting
in,
there.
asshole.
I've been checking her dilation.
Just twiddling.
Yeah, or worse. It's just gas.
I'd stay in a hotel like near the hospital. I'd be like,
Yeah.
nah, fuck
Yeah.
this. I'm not driving back.
I'm gonna stay here till the baby's
Yeah.
born.
Exactly. Just
Mhm.
sit down in the. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
Do with me what you will. I'm not moving.
I would start like crawling through the hallways to try induce labor. I have no idea what works.
Walk.
Just sit there flicking your nipples. Nipple
Yeah.
stimulation can induce labor. Just-
What?
Yep.
It's coming. It's
Oh my god. Is that true?
Yeah, it works.
Tell me that's not
Yeah,
true.
it does. It
No.
stimulates labor. Yeah,
No.
it does. Because
What
after
the
you
flying
also after you have the baby,
finagles.
after you have the baby, when you're breastfeeding, the stimulation helps to shrink the uterus back to the normal size. So I'm serious. Yep.
If it- well, I got a food baby. Maybe I can get rid of this gut.
how did we get
That was
here?
awesome. I don't know, but wow.
When my wife had her first one, I do stand up, Jen. I don't know if you know this, but I was
Yeah.
writing jokes about inducing labor. And 100 years ago, or whatever, however amount of time ago, they used to tie the woman to a giant pole, and like put her up and like lift her up and like try and shake the baby out. Can you imagine?
And that's where we learn not to shake the baby.
Like, give me your lunch money type
Yeah,
style.
exactly. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
That's so
Fuck.
good. No.
Here's
Uh-uh.
something that I have to say about this that I was thinking about. I think as humans, and maybe I'm going a little bit too deep with this, you can tell me to shut the fuck up, but I think as humans, we understand too little of our world that's around us, of everything that we use. And that goes like with electricity. How the fuck does electricity work? Do you guys know? I kind of know, but it's because I looked into it. But as a kid, you're not taught like it's stored electrons in a place, and how does it move from area to area, and how do we collect it, and how do we store it? None of that's understood by
Oh,
us.
you just flip a switch.
Exactly. It's just
That's
magic,
right.
right? And I think I think we're the same with the medical stuff. There's only a certain few people that actually understand the pharmaceuticals and stuff, how it's actually working. And as a layman or as a patient, we don't understand enough of what we're actually taking. And I think people should take their mental health into their own hands a lot of the time and understand what medications they're being prescribed, and understand why they're taking it and how it's actually helping and benefiting them before they start popping the pills. I don't think enough of us do that kind of stuff. Understand what's around us in our world, and especially something you're going to consume. I feel like that's something maybe we should actually look into. Like, if do you ever look at the labels on the sides of your food? Like, what the hydrocarbon clobanics? Like, what the fuck is that? Yum. You know what I mean? Like, we do that all the time, and we're all terrible for it. And I think that should be a part of our education as a kid, is to like maybe understand what you're putting in your body before you put it in your body, or understand what you're doing before you do it.
I have a really good tip for that, actually.
Okay.
Your doctor is a generalist.
Yeah.
Don't talk to him about shit. Get your
Yeah.
prescription from him. You sit down and you talk to your pharmacist.
Yes.
You have a good long talk with your pharmacist. They know everything.
Yeah.
They've seen it all, and they are just fucking wells of knowledge, and they're amazing. Shout out to pharmacists. Seriously,
Yeah,
you guys
amazing.
are fucking heroes.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
love talking to our pharmacist on the ward. Like, if I want information on a medication that I'm about to give my patient, I always go to her before I'd go to a doctor, because the doctor's just like, oh yeah, it does this. but the pharmacist will be like, it does this because it does this to the body, and it does this to the body, and it puts this in the body, and this is what's going to happen if you give them too much or too little, blah, blah, blah. It's really good. I love our pharmacist. She's incredible.
Yeah, people give shit to pharmacists because they're like, what do you do? Just put pills in a bottle? Like, fuck no. Pharmacists are smart ass people. That's a hard.
They have to know exactly what every one of those pills does.
And
And
interact
all the
with.
side effects.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, now because of COVID, I think there's even options that you can just go to your pharmacist and they can prescribe you pills because they know so much. Yeah. Like, that's the coolest shit because I don't even go to a doctor before. Like, I just walk up to my pharmacist and say, hey, can you help me?
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the medical field that are so much better to talk to than your doctor. What are they called? Nurse practitioners
Yes.
are fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're awesome. They know fucking everything your doctor is gonna know.
Yep.
And they have like way more hands-on experience just because of the way that the education to get there works.
Mm-hmm.
And they know you as a nurse knows you as an actual human being versus a doctor that sees you for a
As
minute.
a number.
You know,
Yeah.
unless you're there for surgery or something, you're just kind of there for a few minutes and you see them every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, doctors get 15 minutes per patient
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
in Minnesota, at least.
Yeah.
It's funny. When
That's crazy.
A nurse practitioner comes on our ward, and you can see the doctors panic because they know that they're about to get schooled because the nurse practitioner is just so much smarter than them because some of them have had, you know, this one a nurse practitioner I know, she was a nurse for like 25 years before she became a nurse practitioner. So some of these doctors that she's dealing with, they've been out of school for like a year and they know nothing.
Technicians too, man. You want to talk about like your scans and stuff? Yeah, you know what, they're not supposed to, but the door's closed. You want to talk to them? You say, you just say, you know, my doctor's kind of an ass and he doesn't really explain things to me really well. Your technician's gonna be like, that's okay, honey. Let's talk about it. I'm gonna help you. I'm here for you. I care about you. Like, they're just doctors get so much hype. And I'm lucky. My family doctor, I've seen him since I was really little. He took on Jack. Like, he's a really great guy. I love him. He's awesome.
So basically, we've just figured out that doctors are not necessary.
Yep.
Let's not go there.
No.
Just another rope of the narcissistic career choices.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I love my doctors. I love the doctors on our ward. I have a wonderful GP. So doctors are very necessary.
Well, I used to specifically go to nurse practitioners, but then I found a private practice guy that I like. So
No, doctors don't know everything. And that's the problems with doctors, though. They think they know everything. And that's the difference between, I would say, like a doctor and a nurse practitioner, where especially in the example you gave, Christy, where it was 25-year experienced nurse.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't even think she knows everything, versus the doctor that just got out of med school, while knowing lots, and doctors are very smart, still doesn't have the practical knowledge that fucking someone who's actually worked the floor does, right?
Yeah.
So
I think nurses know a lot more than doctors too, most of the time. Like that scene on that 70s show when it's Bring Your Kid to Work Day and Eric goes with his mom, Kitty, and the doctor's like, why didn't you give Mr. So-and-so this pill? And she's like, well, because he takes this pill, and if he takes this pill too, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
And then Eric behind her goes, well, when I go to the hospital, I know I like to not die.
Love that show.
So it's like you just got schooled twice.
Yeah. We're all necessary in the medical field. We all work together. It's like a, you know, one cog helps the other one turn. So I definitely think doctors wouldn't be able to do their job without us nurses, and we, you know, we need them, obviously. All right. So
that was educational.
What's the conclusion, guys?
I think we're all on the same page on this one too. He can pretty much go fuck himself, and it's all his fault.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I will say, if he had just had a bad therapist and he had told the truth right from the beginning that he was having these thoughts, I wouldn't blame him. I would say, you know what? He tried. He was working. He didn't want this to happen. But because he did lie right off the bat about it, none of this would have happened if he just told the truth.
Yeah, it didn't need to happen at all.
Also, In the Carmichael case that you were talking about, he did say that like after that all happened, he like came out of psychosis after like 2 weeks later. He waited 22 minutes and then called the cops and said, I didn't like my kids. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's differences between getting let off and still being in jail, dude. Like,
yeah, organization. I don't know if you listened to our Ruth Finley episode yet, but she was, you know, having these breaks from reality, but she also was really organized, which makes it really hard to follow the whole I wasn't in control
like
theory.
Yeah.
I put it this way. I feel the worst out of this whole case. I feel the worst for the wife because she's like she's still supporting this guy when probably
she's gonna kill him.
Yes, you're right. So I don't feel bad for her. I hope he gets out so the wife can do that. That's perfect. So I'm down with that. Oh, that's good. Good. I like that.
That's what I would. Yeah.
We will go. We'll sign your petition, Kim. We will absolutely help you get him released. Whatever you need to kill him, we've got you.
We'll be there too.
100%. We'll live stream it for you if you want, whatever you want.
So when he was like pretending to jump off the bridge, was this before he had kids? Was this the BK days?
I don't think so, because he mentioned in one of his interviews that the reason that he never tried to kill himself again was because his wife asked him not to.
Okay.
Which means that his wife, like, again, she knew he was in like such bad shape, and she left the.
Too bad she didn't specifically ask him not to kill specific to kill.
That's what she should have done. That's what I was gonna say. Why didn't you just tell him not to kill the whole family? Duh.
Yeah.
Can you please not kill everybody?
But yeah, that's the what the conclusion for me is, like, take your mental health seriously and try and get help with it if you can. Don't fucking lie, and just please, for the love of God, help yourself and help everyone around you, because you never know what kind of catastrophic event may happen because you just decided it was too embarrassing to tell them that you don't like it when your nuts get cancer or whatever.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. Head on over to our Facebook and Instagram to join in on the conversations about all things unethical. Just search Unethical Podcast. You can also find us on Patreon, where you can get access to all of our super awesome content, uncut videos of our discussions, and early release of all the episodes. We are adding fun stuff all the time, so you should definitely come and check it out. Thanks again, we appreciate all of you.
Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. Baby, I got your money. Hey.